her skull gave way. And I strangled her.
They inspire fear, fascination, and contempt.
Mr. Burns, you're not immoral. You're amoral. You are an arrogant, convicted killer.
People who kill other people without passion.
There's blood all over his face.
So he went over to her and he did the same thing, he strangled her more. And I think I watched that time. I was like, what the hell, she's dead anyway. Like,
Coldly, ultimately unrepentant.
I'm not gonna look at the mother of my kids and put a knife in her head. No. I'm not gonna stick a pistol in my woman's head and say, don't take no abortion. If she wanna take an abortion, go ahead.
Feeling sorry, but only for themselves.
I'm struggling with how upset my wife is right now.
Good evening, I'm Linden MacIntyre. This is a story about our nightmares. The images and language can be rough sometimes, so be warned. It's about criminals we sometimes label psychopaths because of how they act, predatory and remorseless. They can't be cured because technically they aren't sick. A surprising number of Canadians believe we should go back to killing them. They scare us and so become the subjects of our myths, our politics, and with depressing regularity, our journalism. Meet Lightning Lee.
If the wind blow, with all due respect, if the wind blow, my dick get up. You understand?
Psychiatric tests revealed he had a preference for rape and causing pain. He was in a class by himself, almost a pure psychopath. He scored 39 out of 40 on a checklist of psychopathic traits. In the early and mid-'80s, Melbourne Lee earned the nickname Lightning as a kickboxer. By the late 80s, he was a poster boy, a competitive bodybuilder. He got to look like this by lifting weights and consuming steroids, which he would later claim caused serious physical and personality problems. He turned into quite a specimen, but behind the image there was a darker reality. Fraud and weapons offenses dating back to 1980, and sexual violence that culminated in 1997 with charges of rape and murder.
I'm not gonna sit out here and lie to myself, lie to y'all and say, yeah, you know something? You know, I'm a holy man and I'm this, I'm all good at two shit. No, that's bullshit. You understand? No, I'm being myself. If you mess with me out there and you endanger my life, I will put a cap in your behind. I'm not gonna say I won't.
He sounded like a gangster, but in the 20 years he'd been in Canada, his victims had mostly been women and children.
He is a textbook psychopath. He has raped, maimed, and injured women and children for the last 17 years. He's now finally...
Rita Zayed was the Ontario Crown prosecutor who successfully persuaded a judge to declare Melbourne Lightning Lee a dangerous offender. We spoke to her 13 years ago.
I think what makes Mr. Lee so dangerous is his, well, there's the violent component of it, of course, but he has that ability to con and to manipulate and to charm people. And
then to hurt them.
And then to hurt them, to lure them into a sense of security, to lure them into thinking that he cares about them, and to, when it suits him, to be extremely violent with them.
I consider myself a king.
A what?
A king.
A king?
Yeah, don't get it wrong now.
Well, you're doing the talking.
Now, you understand? In the Muslim religion in the United States, we consider ourselves as kings because we come from a line of royalty, you understand? Therefore, we treat our women as queen, you understand? And how do you treat a queen? Good, right? That's how we treat our women.
One of his former girlfriends came home. They sat down in the living room. They had a perfectly normal, calm conversation. There was no dispute between them. They were getting along well. She said, I'm going to bed now. When you're ready to leave, wake me up, and I'll lock the door. He woke her up all right. There was a knife sticking out of her head.
Well, what about the woman who has testified that she woke up and you had a knife stuck in her head?
Well, Unfortunately, I feel sorry for her, you understand? And I didn't stuck a knife in her head, you understand? They got to do the work and find who did that.
In the ranks of psychopaths, Lee is a heavyweight. On the clinical scale for assessing psychopaths, both Clifford Olson and Paul Bernardo scored lower than Melbourne Lightning Lee, which failed to impress him.
If they want to do a good assessment, go out and interview all the women that I've been with, or everybody who know me. They'll get a hell of an assessment. They didn't do that.
They showed you pictures of violent sex, and it aroused you. How do you explain that?
How do I explain that? To me, I wasn't aroused, you understand? These motherfuckers up there are sick, excuse my language. I get angry when when I remember stuff like that.
Hey, while you're angry, let me run the other one by you. You would rather rape somebody than have sex with them consensually. How does that fit with what you know about Melbourne Lee?
No, that don't fit with me. That don't fit with me at all.
One of his victims didn't know very much about psychopathic traits or about rape when he assaulted her in an empty West Toronto storefront. She was only 9 years old when it happened in January 1997.
One of the things that that hurt you the most is you pled guilty once to sexual assault against a 9-year-old kid.
Yes, I did. You understand? I did.
Her vagina was ruptured. This is the evidence. I mean, this doesn't make you look very good.
No, it don't. It don't. You understand?
You're an innocent man?
Innocent. Innocent is a very strong word. You understand?
What's the word you'd use?
I would use that word too, but don't make it look as if I'm a choir boy walking up the street and then boom. No, I'm not like that. You understand? But I'm not gonna go and rush up into a woman's house and cut her neck. No, that ain't me. I don't carry knives. You understand? I'm not gonna look at the mother of my kids and put a knife in her head. No. I'm not gonna stick a pistol in my woman's head and say, don't take no abortion. If she wanna take an abortion, go ahead. I'm the woman taking an abortion for me. You understand? Unfortunately, the judge didn't believe me, believe her. Then it's all bullshit.
Back in 1994, Lee used a knife in this apartment in West End, Toronto, and after violently raping Mimi Nikolic, killed her. Forensic evidence was bulletproof.
And according to the Crown position, nobody else in the world could have done that. How are you going to get past that?
In the trial, I didn't deny the fact that I slept with Mimi. You understand? But I didn't rape her. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't deny the fact to the jury. I told them, yeah, I did sleep with her. We had a little freaky deaky. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's not the first woman we had a little freak with.
And it was a brutal rape, and the cutting of her throat was not just one cut, it was many cuts. The pathologist said that it was an endeavor to cut through her spinal column.
In January 2000, a judge declared Lee to be a dangerous offender, which means he's serving an endless prison sentence. He can apply for parole in 2022. The odds are he'll never walk the streets again. But then again, one of the gifts of the true psychopath is optimism.
They've dragged you to court. They've convicted you on some horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
They've declared you the most dangerous man in Canada. They say that you cannot be rehabilitated, ever, and that you probably will never be fit to go out in the community again. That doesn't even shake your sort of strength, doesn't shake your self-assurance.
Why should it?
Why should it?
They use the word never. Never say never. Do you understand? Because of me, they will say there will never gonna be another cure. I will never be cured. I will never be this. I will never be that. I will never get out. Everything for me is a first and the worst. And I will walk out of here one day. If it's 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, but I'm gonna walk out of here one day. You understand?
When we come back, he seemed to be the opposite of Lightning Lee.
I've never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no? Okay.
But he was driven by the same dark forces.
Let me ask you this. Did you like or dislike these women?
I didn't know any of them.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
In 2010, he was one of Canada's most distinguished military officers, commander of an Air Force base. But on this day, he doesn't seem to realize that he's a murder suspect.
You ever been interviewed by the police in a room like this before? Or?
I've never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no?
Disposing of an extreme criminal after the fact makes for an interesting moral argument. Put him to death, treat him, lock him up forever. Catching him before he strikes is next to impossible, especially when he's wearing a disguise, influence, respectability, authority, all of which will insulate him from suspicion and make him hard to crack even when he's caught. This was the dilemma facing the policeman who first confronted Colonel Russell Williams, suspect in 2 murders and a wave of sexual assaults.
Okay.
The colonel is accustomed to the deference of less important people. The policeman is polite in his inquiries about the disappearance of one victim, Jessica Lloyd, who lived not far away from where the colonel has a cottage.
We don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously.
The interviewer is Detective Sergeant Jim Smith of the Ontario Provincial Police.
If there's anything that comes up in our interview today, Russell, that you feel you want to talk to a lawyer about, you just let me know, okay? Sure. You let me know.
Williams subtly reminds the cop that he's respectable, rarely needs a lawyer.
Do you have your own lawyer?
I have a realty lawyer, but...
The policeman, without fanfare, has informed the suspect of his right to legal counsel. Now he's ready to proceed to the reason for the meeting.
I want to explain to you exactly what's going on here, okay? Jessica Lloyd is one of 4 cases that we're currently investigating, okay?
The colonel has the upper hand. He's the unlikely maniac behind a crime wave near his lakefront cottage in Tweed, Ontario. Dozens of bizarre break-ins, women's lingerie and underwear stolen, almost all in his neighborhood or even on his street. Sexual assaults, 2 murders.
These first 2 attacks happened not that far from my place in Tweed. Well, the second one did.
Yeah.
We didn't even know the first one had happened, but I understand that was reasonably close as well. But the second one was very close.
His use of "we" is misleading. He's been alone at his cottage when most of the crimes occurred, but he's been helpful.
So certainly at the time, the OPP did a door-to-door.
Yeah.
And within a couple of days, probably the same night, so I spoke with a couple of guys then.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm aware of that. You know, you've kind of almost hit the nail on the head about some of our issues that kind of make us want to talk to Russell Williams, okay? Because essentially, there was a connection between you and all 4 of those cases. Would you agree? Geographically,
and then I guess
or...
I drive past, yes, I would have to say there's a connection, yeah.
Is there anything you can think of that anybody may have misinterpreted, or anything in your history that somebody might say Russell Williams
Absolutely
did this?
No.
Okay.
It'll be very boring.
What's that?
It'll be very boring.
All right.
Now a crucial turn. The colonel is an honest citizen. Surely he's prepared to clear away any hint of suspicion.
What would you be willing to give me today to help me move past you in this investigation?
What do you need?
Well, would you be willing to supply things like fingerprints, blood samples,
Sure.
things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the colonel has to be alarmed a little.
Footwear impressions.
Williams looks towards his feet, at the boots he's wearing.
I think that's what we're gonna ask you to do.
Okay.
All right.
Detective Smith leaves the room. he'll arrange to get the evidence before the suspect has second thoughts. Williams is a military man. By nature and by training, he's conditioned to maintain composure under pressure. It's a measure of his delusional self-confidence that he now freely gives up potentially devastating evidence: fingerprints, blood, DNA, and an imprint of his boots. His one concern, that people might find out that he's been treated, even briefly, as a suspect.
Can I assume you're going to be discreet?
It's possible, yeah.
Because, this would have a very significant impact on the base if they thought you thought I did this.
Well, bottom line, Russell, that's one of the reasons we're here on a Sunday afternoon.
Because it's tough to undo the rumor mill once it gets started.
The policeman has now achieved two major goals: informed the suspect of his rights, got consent to take incriminating evidence. He's ready to begin his end game, a confession.
This is the footwear impression of the person who approached the rear of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January, okay?
Williams has to realize that he's walked into a trap.
This is a photocopy of the boot that you took off your foot just a little while ago, okay?
Wearing the same boots that he wore the night the victim disappeared.
These are identical. Okay. Your vehicle drove up the side of Jessica Lloyd's house. Your boots walked to the back of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January. Okay. You want discretion. We need to have some honesty, okay? Because this is getting out of control really fast, Russell. Okay, really, really fast. Russell, you know there's only one option. What other option is there?
What's the option?
Well, I don't think you want the cold-blooded psychopath option. This is over. And it can have a bad ending where Jessica's parents continue to wonder where her daughter's lying. So what are we going to do?
The colonel has seen his defenses overwhelmed. In his silences, he must be struggling to assess the damage, and must know that he has one more asset: knowledge. Where to find the body of the victim.
Russell, what are we going to do?
Call me Russ, please.
Okay. Russell, listen to me for a second, okay? When that evidence comes in, when that DNA match, when that phone rings and somebody knocks on this door, your credibility is gone. The bottom line is that as soon as we get that piece of evidence that solidifies it, DNA, okay?
The cop is out of tricks. The tactic now is to wear the suspect down before he starts to bargain. Finding Jessica is crucial for her family and for evidence.
What are we going to do, Russ?
Incredibly, the military commander seems unaware of the tiny bit of power that he has left.
It's hard to believe this is happening.
The policeman gambles, becomes sympathetic once again.
Russ, is there anything you want from me? Is there anything you want me to explain? Is there something missing that you're struggling with that I can shed some light on for you?
He has struck a sentimental chord. The suspect wobbles.
I'm struggling with how upset my wife is right now.
Russ, what are you looking for?
I want to minimize the impact on my wife.
So do I.
So how do we do that?
Well, we start by telling the truth.
After 4 hours, 40 minutes, and 10 seconds, checkmate.
Get him out.
How long has she been there for?
A little over a week.
How long was she alive for?
Almost 24 hours, not quite.
Okay.
The disordered personality of Colonel Russell Williams now becomes obvious.
Well, so I raped her in her house. And then I took her to the car and took her to Tweed. Spent the day in Tweed. And then I hit her as we were walking. She thought we were leaving. Hit her on the back of the head.
He is factual, detached. No indication of remorse or empathy for another human being.
Well, I was surprised that her skull gave way. She was there and immediately unconscious. And I strangled her.
We're conditioned to think of murderers as monsters, easily recognizable by appearance or extreme behavior. But the opposite is more probable. They will seem normal, often interesting, or, in the Colonel's case, respectable and influential. But like the cartoon Psychopath, the Colonel murdered 2 young women and tortured others. And in the end, he couldn't answer the simplest of questions. Why? Nor can anybody else.
Why do you think these things happen? Have you spent much time thinking about that?
About why?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know the answers. And I'm pretty sure the answers don't matter.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you like or dislike these women?
I didn't know any of them.
When we come back,
Ooh, I can see the tongues right now.
the cold-blooded killer who charmed and talked her way to freedom.
I was going to work. I didn't want to go to work knowing that this girl was in my house and she could escape so easily, and I was afraid. So I didn't suggest to him that we kill her on Sunday, but I knew that she had to be gone.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
They were nobodies, suddenly and permanently notorious for crimes that challenged even the most cynical imagination. He stalked and raped young women. She helped him murder 2 of them, and to rape her younger sister, who died as a result. She needs no introduction. Karla Homolka has never been officially labeled as a psychopath, but label or no label, she had all the gifts, helped kill 3 people, then used prettiness and charm to persuade cops, psychiatrists, and the courts that she was a victim of abuse, and that they needed her to nail the abuser, her husband, Paul Bernardo. By the time her trial began late in June 1993, she'd already made a deal. She'd testify against Bernardo, plead guilty on 2 manslaughter charges, and spend 12 years in prison. But by the time she testified, it could be argued that the prosecution didn't really need her. They had video with graphic detail of the crimes. A lawyer had discovered the incriminating tapes, but here's the catch. The prosecution didn't know about them till long after they had cut their deal with Karla. The Fifth Estate would later turn up other tapes, Karla cooperating with police after she'd cut a deal, a relatively brief prison term, for what she will reveal to have been full complicity in horrific sexual abuse and murder. She claimed to be distressed, but watched a gruesome murder anyway.
And then she took a breath. And that freaked me out even more. He should have slapped me in the face because I was really hysterical then. So he went over to her and he did the same thing, he strangled her more. And I think I watched that time, because what the hell, she's dead anyway, like.
For a tour of the murder scene, the outfit she wore was eerily like that of an innocent schoolgirl. She'd been present for the full horror show, but seemed totally detached.
Can you answer a question for me? Was any of the furniture damaged as a result of the investigation?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, good, because I'm asking for it.
She whined that her husband spoiled their wedding night, bragging about raping other women.
He wasn't loving. He acted like he didn't care that we got married. He told me that he was a Scarborough rapist, and it just was not like the kind of wedding night that girls dreams about having. You're bad. You're bad.
By her own account, she was instrumental in the kidnappings and seduction that led first to the death of her sister Tammy, and then the sadistic murder of 2 schoolgirls, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. There's no sense that she realized she was an accomplice in a vicious crime, even when she helped him plan it.
He kept saying, go through what we're gonna do. So I said, well, if we see a girl, we're gonna stop. I'm gonna ask her for directions. I'm gonna try and get her over to the car. So he wanted her right beside him so he could hold the knife to her. And I sat in the back seat, actually more in the middle of the 2 of the front seats, and I held her hair and like I held her head down.
Her empathy with their young female victims is limited to a sentimental moment of regret.
I never should have gotten to know Kristen, because you get emotionally involved with these people, and it really hurts. It hurts a lot more, because I felt like I was friends with both of them, especially Kristen, because we did so much stuff together. We put makeup on together. We talked, just girl talk when Paul was gone getting us food, and it just made it hurt even more.
Police and lawyers bought her version of events, even a psychiatrist, Andrew Malcolm.
This girl was convincing to me when I saw her. She gave me an outline of abuse going back for some 5 years, and she was extraordinarily convincing as she gave me this story.
The story she would give her friends was chilling in its candor, like her account of how her sister died, reported by friends Kathy and Alex Ford.
This was her wedding present.
This was her way of saying, here's your virgin, Paul.
She did this to keep Paul to marry her? That's what she told us after.
That's what she told us.
In a letter to another friend, she's scathing about her father, who in her opinion was overly emotional about his daughter Tammy's death.
Dear Deb, fuck my parents. First they took away half the wedding money, then they kicked us out. My father doesn't even want us to have a wedding anymore. Screw that. We're having a good time. If my father wants to sit at home and be miserable, he's welcome to. He's only worked a day since Tammy died. He's wallowing in his own misery and fucking me.
It's just appalling. It appears to me to be absolutely callous and totally unconcerned about the fact that her sister had died significantly through her own actions only a couple of months earlier. She doesn't care that her father is grieving about the loss of his daughter. This is really quite a shocking thing.
Her self-confidence, perhaps a feature of extreme narcissism, would come in handy when she showed up in court to testify against her husband, Bernardo's lawyer, John Rosen.
I would pound her with terrible stuff, and she would get stronger and stronger and stronger. And at the end of it, no one in that room or anybody following that trial would ever have believed that she suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, or that she was a battered spouse, or that she didn't have the intestinal fortitude to walk out and blow the whistle and save herself, never mind the victims.
I said, well, we have to go to my parents for Easter dinner. And he said, well, why don't we just not go? And I said, well, I don't think it would look very good. I mean, we're supposed to go to my parents for Easter dinner and we don't go. And I said, well, how's it going to look if, you know, this girl's missing and we have no alibi? We haven't gone anywhere, we haven't done anything. And he said, well, I guess you're right. And because he wanted to keep her for longer, and I didn't want to. Like, I was going to work. I didn't want to go to work knowing that this girl was in my house and she could escape so easily, and I was afraid. So I didn't suggest to him that we kill her on Sunday, but I knew that she had to be gone.
Her crimes were sickening to normal people, yet she escaped full accountability. With breathtaking skill, she manipulated the justice system, took a 12-year sentence during which she got fit and educated, learned French. Came out, got married, has 3 kids, lives, it seems, happily ever after on an island in the Caribbean. When we come back...
Doesn't feel like your parents and my thought sister.
Pretty rotten, but it's tempered by the fact that I felt that
what?
It was necessary to, I guess, achieve what I wanted to achieve in this life.
Murderous persuasion.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
It was the summer of 1994 in Bellevue, Washington, just outside Seattle. Shortly after 2 a.m., someone took a 911 call from this house in a quiet neighborhood.
What are you reporting? My friend, his mom and dad, we think they're dead.
Sebastian Burns was staying with his best friend, Atif Rafay. They'd met as teenagers in West Vancouver. Sebastian Burns would later tell police they found his friend Atif's mom first. Then they saw Atif's father, Tariq Rafay.
Please, fast, okay?
Yes, they're on the way.
Okay.
They're on the way.
We'll be outside.
Okay, go ahead.
As the 2 young men waited outside for help, a third victim, Rafay's autistic older sister Basma, was clinging to life, moaning in her bedroom. She died a few hours later at the hospital, taking with her the secret of who had murdered her family. They come in all shapes and sizes, young and old, scary-looking or distinguished, ugly, sexy, nondescript. What they all have in common is an unusual ability to persuade, to get others to put themselves or their property at risk, or, as in this case, to exterminate a family.
See, I don't understand this, Atif. Your sister is moaning. She's hurt.
Yes.
And you don't want to help her.
Detectives wanted to know why Atif didn't go to help his dying sister, even though he could hear her moaning.
How hurt is she?
I didn't know.
Okay, you don't know how hurt she is.
I don't know how hurt she is. All I know is that I can't do anything.
They skipped the family funeral in the States, but showed up at a mosque for a memorial in Vancouver.
Atif, why don't you talk to police?
They were more like celebrities than mourners, fleeing the paparazzi. laughing as they made their getaway. Then the Canadian police picked up a peculiar rumor. The boys were trying to raise money for a movie. They already had a script. It wasn't long before the Mounties had their own script, a sting that would become a controversial feature of criminal investigations here, an operation called Mr. Big, in which policemen pose as criminals to get self-incriminating evidence from suspects. Soon, undercover Mounties pretending to be crooks with money to invest were recording devastating conversations with Sebastian Burns.
When you both guys are up one day and say, hey, let's go off, your family is fucking get all their money?
Basically. Essentially, yeah.
How do you fucking do 3 people at once?
I don't want to do that.
Now Sebastian introduces Atif to corroborate his story.
How's it feel killing your parents and one father and sister?
Pretty rotten, but it's tempered by the fact that I felt that it was necessary.
What?
It was necessary to, I guess, achieve what I wanted to achieve in life.
It was controversial evidence. Arguably, it was entrapment, which isn't legal in the U.S., but what the Mounties found out here was good enough to warrant murder charges in Washington state anyway, and after a judge allowed it in a trial, good enough to undermine what Burns thought would be a perfect alibi. They'd been at a movie.
There are 2 independent neighbors who separately heard the murder happen at the end of twilight, before 10 o'clock, and we were known to be on the other side of town when that happened. It was impossible for us to have committed this crime.
Prosecutors would blow that alibi away, but the clincher was that virtual confession to those Mounties who pretended to be crooks with cash to spend on a real-life murder movie.
Which you do first?
The mother.
Then? And dad and sister.
As the hidden cameras roll, Sebastian confirms the police theory that the murder weapon was a baseball bat.
Would you use a metal or a wooden bat? Metal.
After the killing spree, Sebastian took a shower to remove the bloody evidence of the carnage he had caused.
So it's just about the shower?
I think the shower to clean off, blood and that kind of stuff.
But what about his clothing? Now the startling disclosure that he was naked when he killed his victims.
No blood on? How do you fucking, it's on the baseball and have the shower, no blood on you?
Do it naked.
The jury would see and hear even more about the twisted personalities of Sebastian Burns and Atif Rafay.
Did you see it happen?
Yeah.
All 3?
No, only one.
Which one? Did any of them fight?
Yeah.
Well, that's a story that hasn't really been told, because
basically, his father, it was nothing, and the curious episode was, the sister who basically, was standing up and walking around and whatever. F-word.
The verdict was almost predictable.
All rise for the jury.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Glenn Sebastian Burns, guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree as charged in count 1, verdict form 1F. We, the jury, find the defendant, Atif Ahmed Rafay, guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree as charged in count 3.
I did not believe that they didn't have reasonable doubt.
5 months later, they were back in court for sentencing.
Sebastian, anything to say before they put you away?
Mr. Burns?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sebastian exercised his right to speak.
With all due respect to the jurors, the verdict was wrong. I certainly feel sorry for the victims. I feel sorry for their surviving sons. But before I continue, I would just encourage you to consider.
He went on and on for nearly 2 hours.
And that's what our jury was made to have.
I want to insist today on the truth that we are innocent.
Rafay's emotions seem genuine and normal.
And I love my parents. I revere their memory to this day. I was probably closer to my mother than to any other person that I ever will be. And the memory of her wit and her charm and her keen human sympathy, they're dear to me to this day.
Mr. Rafay, thank you. Unlike your colleague, I find you genuinely remorseful, Mr. Rafay. I think the tragedy for you and ultimately your family was a meeting, a fateful meeting at probably a school cafeteria or a school ground. I don't know where it occurred with Mr. Burns.
As for Mr. Burns, the judge's words described a psychopath.
Mr. Burns, you're not immoral. You're amoral. You are an arrogant, convicted killer. You are not a kid, as you so often refer to yourself. You're an adult, and you will be held responsible as an adult for your premeditated, naked, vicious massacre of this family.
They will spend their lives in prison, each serving 3 consecutive life sentences for the 3 lives that they terminated for no reason but to get their hands on easy money.